gathered. Okay. Finished your rounds? Yes. Good. Right, devotees, here we go. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presta Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschithyade Shatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchkalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Right, so Srila Prabhupada is in Los Angeles, staying for some time, and the last thing that happened that we read about, of course it was last week, so you might not remember. Anyone remember what was the last thing? I doubt it. Your iPhone remembers. It's got a good memory. Okay, so a record arrived from London. The devotees, with the help of George Harrison, and George Harrison playing on it, on a few of the tracks. And Eric Clapton also. I don't know if any of you've heard of him. You've heard of him? You're not a fan. You heard of Eric Clapton? Good. You heard of Eric Clapton? Oh, you have? Okay. Anyway, he is still a very famous guitarist. Yeah. So anyway, and yeah, really extremely famous. Yeah, they played on it, and what happened? Oh, okay. So it's a single, it's not the album, it's the Govindam, which we play. It was a single, yes, and it got released for to be sold in the shops and all. And so it arrived and Prabhupada received it. And Prabhupada became, well, they played, Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasasan. Oh, the next morning, he entered the temple room for the deity greeting, bowed down before his deity, before the deities. Well, actually, it doesn't say it was at the deity greeting, but he went in, bowed down before the deities, sat on his Vyasasan, and they put the record on. And you remember what happened? Yes. Suddenly, Prabhupada became stunned with ecstasy. His body shivered, and tears streamed from his eyes. The devotees, feeling a glimmer of their spiritual master's emotion, began to chant Hare Krishna as if chanting japa. The moments seemed to pass slowly. Finally, Prabhupada spoke. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. He was again silent. Then he asked, "Is everyone all right?" The response was a huge roar, Jai Prabhupada. And he began the Srimad Bhagavatam class. There's a number of recordings. We played one the other day, you remember? Prabhupada becoming very emotional. Do you remember that? Story of Sanatana Goswami dealing with Madan Mohan. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And there's a few others. Okay, so Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vigyeha. Okay, Vigyeha Nabuchaya. A little spelling error. No one can understand the mind of a Vaishnav. Quote unquote. Only a pure devotee can understand another pure devotee perfectly. But by observing the main activities of Prabhupada's life, we can see that whatever he did was pure service to Lord Krishna and was a perfect example of how to surrender to Krishna. He taught by precept and by example, often encouraging, even praising his disciples. He always pushed them into more and more participation in the blissful Sankirtan movement of Lord Caitanya. But he also exposed the faults of his disciples. And these faults were sometimes great and painful to see, both for him and for his disciples. Well, one devotee, I won't mention his name, a very well-known devotee now and at that time too, he told me years ago how he and another devotee had been in South India enrolling life members, the first team to go to South India, like mainly Chennai, I mean in those days Madras, but anyway, some down the south there. And they really did well. They made so many members and collected so much Lakshmi. It was just, really quite amazing. So then he went back to visit Srila Prabhupada, I think in Bombay, but anyway, he went back to the north to visit Prabhupada. And so he came in to see Prabhupada. And so Prabhupada asked, how things going and how was the trip. And the devotee explained that, we made so many members and we collected so much Lakshmi. It was just incredibly ecstatic. It was amazing. I've never felt so Krishna conscious in my life. And then he said, sort of as an aside almost to Prabhupada, but still, sometimes I feel the influence of Maya. And Prabhupada replied, you are always in Maya. Hare Krishna. Well, let's face it. Let's just say something about being in Maya. In a certain sense of the term, well, in fact, really, we are always in Maya. We means us, yes. Because we're all eternal spirit souls. We are not these bodies. We are not these minds. We're all eternal servants of Krishna. But none of us, I think, none of us know who we are eternally. Are you a gopi? Are you a cowherd boy? Are you a peacock? You don't know. You definitely don't know. But you are something, whatever. But why don't you know who you are? Why don't you know who you are? Because you're in Maya. Yeah. But Krishna's so merciful that even though, what to speak of not seeing that I am somebody in Krishna Leela somewhere. Not only that, but we're really quite prone to identify with the body and sometimes get distracted by material desire. Did it ever happen to you? Does it ever happen? No? Sometimes. Well, let's be honest. I mean, yeah. Let's not just be honest, but be real. So it's just because we're engaged in the service of Srila Prabhupada and as sincere representatives that we are protected and we're able to carry on. And if we try hard, we're very happy in Krishna consciousness, even though we don't actually see that I am such and such, which you are. It's already there. It's already there. So even though we are in Maya in that sense, but we're protected from Maya in that we're not just totally overwhelmed and just run off to, wherever, some place for sense gratification. Do you follow the idea? Does it make sense? Or I think it makes sense, yeah. So we're protected by the Lord because of our connections with devotees, particularly Srila Prabhupada and those who are close to Prabhupada. Otherwise, without that protection, there'd be no question of being fixed spiritually. We just get washed away by the material world. Just like another thing, this is a little story I've told many times. Some of you, I'm sure, have heard it. That one devotee was complaining to Prabhupada about another devotee. Some devotee, he's like this, Srila Prabhupada. He's like that. And it does this and that, and it's too much. And I just can't deal with him. Can't associate with him. And Srila Prabhupada answered, no, well, that's all right, but he's a devotee. So, don't be so sort of hard. But the devotee said, but Prabhupada, he's like this, he's like that, and he's like so many things, and he doesn't this, and he will not that. And I just can't tolerate him. And Srila Prabhupada answered, he's a devotee, just try to tolerate him as I tolerate you. So don't worry. For all of us, there's at least one other devotee who's tolerating you. And if you ever become a GBC member, it's not just one either. Okay, let's go. One day, as Prabhupada came into his quarters at the Los Angeles temple, he saw that one of the devotees cleaning his room had placed his picture upside down. A simple mistake, but it indicated something wrong in the disciples' mentality. Every morning the devotees sing prayers to the spiritual master, honoring him as the direct representative of God. How could any sincere disciple not notice that he is standing God's representative upside down? Then, a more serious discrepancy. Wow, okay. Prabhupada went to the temple, greeted the deities, and went to take Charanamrita, the scented water from the bathing of the deities. It was part of his daily schedule. After his morning walk, he would return to the temple and offer obeisances to the deities while the Govinda record was being played. A devotee would then offer him a few drops of Charanamrita in his right palm, and he would sip it. He had mentioned this item of devotional service in the Nectar of Devotion. And this is quoted from the Nectar of Devotion. Scented with perfumes and flowers, the water comes gliding down through his lotus feet and is collected and mixed with yogurt. In this way, this Charanamrita not only becomes very tastefully flavored, but also has tremendous spiritual value. The devotees who come to visit and offer respects to the deity take 3 drops of Charanamrita very submissively and feel themselves happy in transcendental bliss. Now fasten your seatbelts, devotees. You're sitting down, yeah, okay. On this particular morning, however, as Srila Prabhupada took Charanamrita, he frowned. Someone had put salt in it. He walked the length of the temple room, took his seat on the Vyasasana, and before a room full of 100 devotees asked, "Who has put salt in the Charanamrita?" A young girl in a sari stood and with a nervous smile said she had done it. "Why have you done it?" Prabhupada asked gravely. "I don't know," she giggled. Prabhupada turned to Gargamuni. "Get someone responsible." Everyone present felt Prabhupada's anger. The unpleasant moment marred the pure temple atmosphere. A disciple worships Krishna by pleasing Krishna's representative, the spiritual master. Therefore, to displease the spiritual master was a spiritual disqualification. The spiritual master was not merely a principle, he was a person, Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, I remember, and this I'm sure some of you have definitely heard. Just one of my own experiences with Srila Prabhupada. There was a group of us, I'd say plus or minus 10 devotees or something. Prabhupada was staying in Bhaktivedanta Manor for not a long time, but for some little while. And we were to get initiated. I was to get second initiation. And some few devotees were to get first. And Srila Prabhupada came out into his main darshan room in Bhaktivedanta Manor. We offered our obeisances, and Prabhupada asked, "Is everyone chanting their rounds?" And these two young girls, young means they may have been under 20 possibly, but they were definitely young. And the two of them giggled. And said, "No, Srila Prabhupada." They weren't chanting 16 rounds. I mean, like every day. And Srila Prabhupada, on the spot, cancelled the initiation for everyone, including us, me, we who were chanting 16 rounds. And you can imagine those girls, their popularity level was not so high. But I was told, because it says here, this girl, she giggled. I don't think she really thought it was funny. I think it was just sort of, some sort of spontaneous thing. I was told that Srila Prabhupada sometimes, and this is just, anyway, I was told that Srila Prabhupada called young girls who giggle a lot giglets. Giglets. Anyway, if you like giggling, don't become paranoid. Just, you could be one of Prabhupada's giglets. Right. So, when ISKCON Press in Boston misprinted Prabhupada's name on a new book, he became deeply disturbed. The small paperback chapter from the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam bore his name on the cover as simply A.C. Bhaktivedanta. Omitted was the customary His Divine Grace, as well as Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's name stood almost divested of spiritual significance. Another ISKCON Press publication described Prabhupada as Acharya of ISKCON, although Prabhupada had repeatedly emphasized that he was the founder Acharya. There had been many Acharyas or spiritual masters, and there would be many more, but His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, was the sole founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. To make matters worse, when Prabhupada first opened the new Bhagavatam chapter, the binding cracked and the pages fell out. Prabhupada glowered. The devotees in Boston, hearing of Prabhupada's anger, knew at once that their mistake in misprinting Srila Prabhupada's name was a serious oversight. Minimizing the spiritual master's position was a grave offense, and they had even published the offense. The serious implications were difficult for the devotees to face, and they knew they would have to rectify their mentality before they could make spiritual progress. Prabhupada criticized the mentality behind these mistakes, and his criticisms were instructive to his disciples. Unless he instructed them about the absolute position of the spiritual master, how would they learn? Because they didn't know a thing. So Prabhupada this kind of famous story. It's probably going to come up sooner or later. When Prabhupada went to, I think, Japan, probably very shortly after this, or anyway, not long after. And it was his appearance day. And so he asked the devotees to get together a festival, and so they got something together. But when it came to reading offerings to Prabhupada, very few, I don't know if any, but I think maybe just very few had written offerings. And Srila Prabhupada was really not happy. So Prabhupada told them, we will do it again tomorrow. And he told them, each one of you write an offering. Means he's telling them, glorify me. And you might say, come on. But who else was going to tell them? Nobody. Yes. Prabhupada criticized the mentality behind these mistakes, and his criticisms were instructive to his disciples. Srila Prabhupada, again, it's a thing which I've mentioned many times because it really struck me very deeply, is that Srila Prabhupada told his disciples about an incident in which he was chastised by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And Prabhupada's the spiritual master. Spiritual master is meant to be, treated in very special ways. We all know that. But here's Prabhupada repeating, sort of exposing himself to the possibility of, being minimized, not being taken seriously. How he got chastised, because he really got quite chastised. What happened was, it was in, I think, Ultadanga Road, that temple in Calcutta, program on the roof, if I remember correctly. And Srila Prabhupada was sitting right at the back, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's right at the front. And there was an elderly gentleman sitting next to Prabhupada, and this elderly gentleman had bad hearing. So every so often he turned to Prabhupada and asked, what did he say? And Prabhupada would turn to him and tell him what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said. So Srila Prabhupada's just trying to help this devotee. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did not appreciate it. And he stopped the class. Silence. And then he pointed to Prabhupada. And he said, you, Babu. Babu, it's almost like Prabhu, but Babu just means mainly householder devotee. You, Babu, would you like to come and sit here? Would you like to speak in front of, a good assembly of devotees? And Prabhupada, everyone's looking at Prabhupada. You can imagine just, wow, you are getting the hot chili sauce. So then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta continued. But Prabhupada, talking about it, said that he really took it as mercy. And Prabhupada said he would he would remember that moment from time to time. And Prabhupada said that he relished remembering that moment when he got chastised in front of devotees by a spiritual master. Okay, let's see now. Well, we're just about there. Okay, we'll finish here. We'll carry on tomorrow. It's more interesting discussions. Whew. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any comment or question, Marie, or anyone? Okay. Oh, yes.
Will we ever get to know our spiritual identity?
Yes. When you're ready. We all will. Of course. That's Krishna consciousness. That's what we're here for. We're not just here just to sort of carry on as we are, endlessly. We are to realize who we are and then enter into that position with Krishna eternally. So, you can do it. Yes. In due course, I'm sure you will do it. So, continue. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, there you go, devotees.